Hello my friends and welcome. This is the latest update from Ukraine. Today we have some awesome news. Ukraine gained some of the territories near to Staromayorsk. Just yesterday Russia tried to offend towards the Ukrainian side, but their forces were totally demolished and instead Ukraine gained more ground. So we had this map yesterday, Russian offensive, but later on Ukraine started the counterattack, cutting the Russian army and forcing them to retreat. If we go to the 3D map, you may see that Staromayorsk is on a lower ground compared to this part of the territory. So actually Ukraine gained the top part of the elevation in this place and later on might start again the attack towards the Russian positions on a downhill. Plus, if we continue turn, you may see that there is the river also on the lower ground, so Ukraine may use now the advantage of the higher elevation. So it is a great achievement by Ukrainian army that happened just recently. Now let's review the town of Avdiivka and the area where Russia advanced, also recently taking control over the industrial part. Well, today Ukraine launched the counteroffensive on the Russian side using mostly FPV drones and some of the artillery. Russia for now is unable to proceed forward even though they have the higher ground in this place. How do I know about the case? Well, the Deep State Military Map published this information, including the drone videos from the place. So here's, for example, the Russian tank, one more Russian tank. All of them were kaboomed using our FPV drones. They were very satisfied that they gained the new positions, but now I don't think that Russians are happy. Again, Russia is losing their air defense systems. For the 5 consecutive days, they lost 5 of the systems. This time it is the Russian Bug, which was targeted by the GMLRS missile. I think that it is the main task for Ukraine to target the Russian air defense, to use more tactical and attack airplanes on the front lines. One more Bug M3 was targeted, so Russia is losing a lot of those systems. Quite a rare electronic warfare was targeted. The name of it is REP R330 Zhitel. It is hard to say what exactly was used to target this thing, probably the drone or again the HIMARS missile. This thing costs millions of dollars. The legendary group of Magyar went to the Kherson Oblast and they target the Russian positions very successfully over there. The big kaboom caused probably by Baba Yaga drone. There was the Russian local drone base. For now, Ukraine has more FPV drones compared to the Russian army, or we use more of them and also more successfully. However, potentially Russia has all of the chances to overcome Ukraine in FPV drones, because even for now they produce more of those drones compared to Ukrainian army. Unfortunately, they do not use them very effectively as Ukraine, but they have many of them. Mostly Russians get technologies, spare parts and the drones themselves from China. But today something happened that may cut the supplies for the Russian Federation from China, because there was the kaboom in the Russians' longest tunnel. It's called Severomursky Tunnel. The length of it is 19 kilometers and this way leads to China. Basically, it's the only connection for the Russian Federation and China using the railroad transport. This tunnel was built a long time ago. It has just a single way, but after it Russia built 3 of the ways to increase the capacity of the railroad, and today we have the report that the train inside the tunnel, which carried some of the aviation fuel and car petrol, just exploded, causing the damage to the tunnel itself and the huge fire inside this facility. It is a huge disaster for the Russian logistics, because the most of the goods they obtain from China are going through this tunnel, not by sea. We know that China wants to back up their ally Russia, sending the drones, and also recently China signed the agreement with Russia for all-terrain vehicles. They were already spotted on the front lines. Plus, it's just my opinion that China supplies military aid to the North Korea, and North Korea supply the same munition to the Russian Federation. Just during the last 3 months, North Korea sent more than 2,000 containers to the Russian Federation. The Ukrainian special services claimed the responsibility for this particular attack, which stopped all of the supplies from China for now. How much time Russia needs to repair the tunnel, no one knows, because the search and the rescue team is unable to reach this hotspot by the time I'm recording this video. So what happened in this tunnel, this particular kaboom, is very important for this war. Russia again targeted the Sukhoi 25 of the Ukrainian Air Force using their Lancet drone. Or not? Well, they published this video on their platforms saying that it is the Ukrainian Sukhoi 25. But something is not right with this airplane. This is basically the scrapped airplane that wasn't flying for a very long time, and it would have never flown, but it was used as the dummy. Here just pay the attention on the engine intakes and the wing, so you can see that there is the gap between the engine and the wing. Also, the canopy is in terrible condition and no facilities around the airplane. Usually you have at least fire extinguishers. And the engine inlet is not blocked on both of the engines. For sure this airplane is not flying, because after each flight on a parking spot you need to plug the engines to avoid some of the debris or ice buildup inside the engine, so definitely it was not done according to the book over here. Why? Because this airplane is basically a dummy. You can see how smoothly the engine intakes goes just into the top of the wing, but here on our picture you may see that it's totally different. My idea is that this airplane was scrapped and the engines were removed together with the engine intake pylon, and later on our guys decided to construct the airplane dummy to attract some of the drones from the Russian side. And it was successful. Plus the airplane was located on one of the main taxiways without any kind of the protection. The Russian military aviation bloggers agreed that this airplane is dummy. It's very suspicious that it was stored on the open parking spot without the requirement for the storage. I think that it is the Google translation, no steps, there is no proper jang around the plane. Well, it's just the Google translation doesn't give the idea of what that blogger was saying. Wow, Russia lost at least 10 of the soldiers, but for now I have the information about 12 of the soldiers in the Rostov shooting range. It's in the Russian Federation. So what happened? The mobilized Russian soldiers started the campfire near to the shells. Shells exploded, as simple as that. So I already told you the result. 20 more soldiers were delivered to the local hospital with wounds. The Ukrainian armed forces are on the training with BMPs, so maybe they're planning the landing operation somewhere. Could be across the Dnieper River in Kherson Oblast. With armored vehicles, this operation might go from the freezing point to some of the interesting events. Unfortunately, the United States of America postponed the delivery of the GLSDB missiles to Ukrainian army. If we may call it a missile, because it is the rocket artillery shell with JDAM on the top. Yes, it has the different name, but the idea is the same. The shell just flies in the sky, then this part disassembles and glide towards the enemy positions with a range up to 150, some say 160 kilometers. Those tools should have been delivered to Ukrainian army even the last year, but still we haven't got them. And the GLSDB tools will be delivered to Ukraine at the beginning of the 2024. Finally, President Zelensky announced the building of the barricades, defense lines, and other stuff to defend Avdiivka in particular, and more sports on the front lines. Because this year Ukraine wasn't really concentrated on defense, but rather was planning the offensive operation, especially on the south. Unfortunately, this assault operation is not going according to the plan, so in this case we need to go for defense, because now we have resources just for it. The Economist, with their headline, "Putin seems to be winning the war in Ukraine for now." Well, actually I wouldn't say like that. Ukraine has the ability to secure the front lines not letting Russia deep inside the Ukrainian-controlled territory. Yes, Russia sometimes may gain some of the ground, but at some point Ukraine takes the ground too. Here in the article they mostly say about the Western attitude towards the war. It changes a little. Ukraine gets less weaponry, but at the same time Russia changed their economy. I've told you about the 70% growth of their military budget for the next year. Also, they received the weaponry from their allies, quite a lot even compared to Ukraine. So if Ukraine doesn't have the military support from the United States and other allies, adequate military support, obviously Putin will get more ground under his control in Ukraine. It doesn't mean that Ukraine loses this war. Ukraine will continue to fight, but for how long this war might continue? Personally, I think that until Putin has the power in Russia. Unfortunately, it's like that. We are unable to cause the military defeat for the Russian Federation. We are unable to go to Moscow, capturing Kremlin together with Putin. Prigozhin got this possibility but failed. Honestly saying that if Ukraine takes the part of the army and will use it on advancement towards Moscow, Ukraine will win in that case because Russia has no defense line. But again, our allies would not let us do this stuff. As you see, it is not the standard war. It is a very strange war. We are not allowed many things. In the beginning or in the middle of the 20th century, everyone would go and attack the capital city with the main power holder. In our case, it's Putin. So unfortunately, we have some issues, but Putin doesn't win in Ukraine. He buries his own country down more and more. Ukraine will finally regain all of the lost territories, believe me, but unfortunately we need years for that. Forbes came out with an article saying that the Abrams N1 tanks are not that good in Ukrainian dirt. They say that the engine air filters require constant cleaning because of the dirt. The crew members should clean them at least once in 12 hours. If the air filters are not cleaned, it might cause to the engine damage. In that case, the engine should be removed from the tank and sent to Poland for repairs. Well, something tells me that it's not like that. I think Abrams tanks were used in the most terrible conditions, much more terrible compared to Ukraine if we speak about the dirt, the sand, and all of those particles that might damage the engine turbine of the tank. Now in Ukraine there is the dirt, but the dirt is wet. It's the rain season, so it has no this inertia to go and penetrate the filters, hitting the turbine directly. Yes, the filters might be clogged and require cleaning, but there is no entry of the dirt into the engine. I believe that. I know that on my own experience, not with the Abrams tanks, but with the dirt bikes. Yes, if you ride them in the dirt, you have it basically everywhere, but the dirt is unable to go inside the engine. If you ride in the sand conditions, in the dust environment, your air filter will be clogged very fast. Forbes says that there is also the huge petrol consumption of the tank. Ukraine uses not the jet fuel but the diesel. Those tanks may run on diesel too. There is no big difference. Well, what can I say? The turboshaft engines consume more fuel in general compared to the piston engines, especially diesel engines. Guys, I'm sure that some of the ex-military engineers who used to work with Abrams tanks are watching my videos, so I'm waiting for your expert opinion about this issue. You may write your comment just under this video. An interesting video published by the United States Army. Remember, we were speaking about the P-8A Poseidon aircraft that skirted the runway in Hawaiian military airfield. So here is the airplane under the water partially. So we have the rare picture of the airplane under the water. Landing gear and everything more or less okay, but engines are under the water together with very sensitive equipment. And the news from Russia, they forbid the LGBT movement. They say that it is the extremist organization inside Russia. It's just crazy. Well, I'm not kind of surprised because it's Russia after all, but the fact is that many of the Russian officials, they're members of parliament, of their Duma, basically the Russian elite are just perverts, and they try LGBT too, not openly, hiddenly, but they do it on the regular basis. We had many of the reports about it. Probably the only non-extremist organization in Russia would be just the Putin's party Единая Россия. That's it. Alright guys, unfortunately we have some of the bad news with the latest update from the deep state military map. Russia advanced towards Stepova. Ukraine had the counterattack over here. We pushed Russians out from their positions behind their railroad. However, they gathered more resources and now strike directly to Stepova. Partially, they're already in the village. It is bad. So this is the recent advancement towards this village. They took the part of it and soon probably will try to move with even more forces. The main thing for Ukraine is to keep control over this industrial part of this area, because there is the very important supply road goes just into it, and it's the main one. If Ukraine loses the control over this part, it's better to withdraw the forces from Avdiivka town. So this is the factory. It's called Avdiivsky Koksahim factory, and this is the very important road that connects Avdiivka with the outer world, let's say. And there is the vector of the Russian advancement. The fight is going very close to the border of this factory, and Russia uses lots of the artillery systems to target this place. For Russia, it's not easy to advance towards that place. They need lots and lots of the forces. So the good thing that this critical road is backed up by this huge defense perimeter. The Ukrainian army shouldn't give it to the enemy. Otherwise, it's better to use it for withdrawal if we start to lose all of this territory. Well, I just hope that everything will be fine over there, but we know that Russia is getting ready for one more big strike on Avdiivka town. They just wait for the proper weather. My friends, don't forget to press the like to this video. It helps me a lot. Also, if you want to support my job, you may find some of the links in the video description just below. Special thanks for my Patreon supporters and also the sponsors of my YouTube channel. Guys, you are awesome. I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.